and you're like, wait, hold on a second. This relationship's supposed to make me feel good. I feel like a failure right now. It must not be working, but oh, look over there. There's a hot one that's giving me some attention. Let me go after that one right there. And the cycle begins again. And the person that you love bombed and you pedestalized, you then all of a sudden, after 6 months to about a year, the wounds get activated, your attachment wounds get activated, and now it goes from love bombing to now you're devaluing them and saying, no, you were not what I thought you were going to be. You did not meet these expectations. And then the discard happens. And then this cycle of love bombing, devaluing, discarding. And you realize that most of your relationships are these what are called codependency trauma bonds, where it's highly volatile and polarized and magnetic in the beginning and just catastrophic once the fantasy gets broken.
Have you ever felt like you're stuck in the same emotional loops? Overreacting, shutting down, and repeating patterns you swore you would change? In this episode, I speak to Dr. Nima Rahmany, a chiropractor-turned trauma specialist who helps you reconnect with yourself by healing the emotional wounds stored in the nervous system. We talk about how it isn't just the event that caused the trauma, it's the way it changed how you see yourself and what you believe you deserve. And more importantly, we discuss how to rewire those old patterns so you're not just surviving, you're actually enjoying your life again. Welcome to Move Your Mind, where we uncover why you are holding yourself back from getting the life you want and what to do about it. With the help from high-achieving guests and experts in behavioral science, personal development, and the health and wellness space. Join us if you're ready to move out of your own way toward your ideal self. I'm your host, nickbracks, and I've been working in the health and wellness space for the last 15 years, helping people find direction and gain the courage to take control of their life. My mission is simple: to help you learn everything that I wish I knew so you can become your ideal self. Lacking guidance, I spent the majority of my youth feeling lost and disempowered, which led to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and substance abuse. Looking back, I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate what I was experiencing. And as a man, I didn't resonate with the emotional language used in traditional therapy. I didn't need to talk about my feelings. I needed tangible solutions to guide me toward building a life I was proud of. If you can relate, then this podcast is for you. In this episode, we discuss how to heal emotional trauma and rewire your nervous system. If you're ready to take action and build a stronger mindset, then keep listening. Nima, thank you so much, mate, for making the time to come on my podcast.
Great to be here, Nick.
Appreciate it. So I'm just going to dive in just to let our listeners learn a bit more about you. Can you give just a quick background on yourself and the work you do?
Yeah, I 20 years as a chiropractor gave me kind of like a little portal into the nervous system, and being able to, using my hands, use that to adjust imbalances or distortions in the spine to produce more vitality, more health, more energy. And what I realized over a 10, 20-year career was that people who were dealing with stress-related disorders, from attachment trauma, from breakups, from grief, from loss, an inability to resolve conflict externally creates that internal conflict, that misalignment in the nervous system that also produces a lack of health. And so I wanted to address that. And it wasn't until, going through my own kind of relational challenges, divorce and several failed relationships, the journey of repairing from my own attachment wounds, I saw this beautiful kind of overlap in the inner work that I did to resolve my own challenges and the work that I can do externally with my patients. And so gradually I started to kind of migrate outside of the office, and I left my practice in 2017. I sold my practice and officially gave up my license in 2021. And now I, deepen my understanding of attachment trauma, polyvagal theory, shadow work, somatic experiencing, parts work. And now I help people heal the root cause of their attachment challenges with that anxious and avoidant dance of relational frustration that's so common. I have a community of people who are committed to breaking the cycle that didn't start with them. And so now I teach people how to become their own medicine.
Amazing. Well, I mean, it's one of the biggest issues because we just, and these things don't become apparent a lot of the time until you're in a relationship. That's the crazy thing. And
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Oh, sorry, you go.
You think you can't see your blind spots, right? And so, we do all of this self-development work, and the real work begins once you get into a relationship, and these challenges, all of your unhealed wounds become triggered, they get activated. And so now you're confronted with parts of yourself that you have worked really hard to suppress or deny. And now the real work begins when you get into a relationship.
And is the common thing to run when that happens? A lot of the time people will just not be able to handle it. I know in, my current relationship, I've had to face so many things that, I didn't even realize. I thought I'd done so much work on myself, and so many things came up. And I'm so grateful for it now and I'm still, got a long way to go, but I've had to work through so many different things. And at the time it's like, putting your head through a wall. Like, you just don't want to do it. It's so painful. It's so much anger comes up, and, but then afterwards I reflect on it and I'm like, thank God, because I know if I was on my own, there's no way, there's absolutely no way I'm going to change that stuff.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been able to identify that. So the answer to your question is, do most people run? It depends on how you're framing a relationship. And this really comes down to why kind of traditional therapies are frustrating, and personal growth is frustrating, because when you show up in a relationship with an identity or an expectation that this person is supposed to fulfill your needs, is supposed to make you feel good about yourself, when that fantasy isn't met, all of a sudden you're confronted with the truth, with reality, and that either I got to leave this because it doesn't match my fantasy. And then you go to another relationship and realize you have the exact same patterns coming up again and again. So at some point, that what you described, the one who runs, the avoidant who runs away from these confronting emotions and feelings that you thought that a relationship should not bring up, which it's actually absolutely designed to. Then one day you wake up and realize, okay, I'm going to stop running, and I'm going to stop being entitled in my expectation of a relationship, and now reframe a relationship as a place where these aspects of myself, these triggers, these discomforts, these insecurities, these frustrations, this feeling like I need space, or this feeling like I need connection and they're not giving me enough connection. You're either one or the other. When you're extreme of one, of the pursuer type, you start to blend towards and attract somebody who's more of the distancer type, called the avoidant. And so this anxious kind of pursuer is kind of like a moth to a flame for this distancer. So the relationship goes like this, and then, it's extremely frustrating. And then you run, and then you date. This was me. I ran, and then I find another person who is exactly the same way. And it's like, okay, crap. Because on some level you want the connection, but then on the other hand, when you get it, the connection feels consuming, overwhelming, this fear of getting vulnerable and getting your heart broken, the fear of abandonment, just like when you were younger. So do we run? Is that yes, we normally do, until hopefully at some point, normally in middle ages, we wake up to the fact, middle age, at 30s to 40s, we wake up and say, holy crap, like, I can't keep running. What am I missing here? And then you start to learn about attachment. You start to learn about how to expand that space between stimulus and response. And instead of acting out on your triggers, to learn how to, what I call, becoming trigger proof, learning how to expand that space between stimulus and response, and identify through these activations through these triggers, what parts of me need my attention and healing? And so then you reframe it as, the relationship isn't some fantasy fairy tale. It's designed to bring up my triggers, but this next kind of like evolved part of me wants to use these triggers so that I can become a more secure person rather than placing the blame externally. I want to take the word blame out of my vocabulary and learn how to become a more secure human being. So it's a journey of self-discovery, Nick. It's a journey where if you frame it properly, it's the most wonderful, amazing thing in the world. And it's not always happy. I'm married now. My wife and I, we have conflict, but who we become on the other side of repairing from that conflict is a connection and a level of intimacy and of companionship and friendship and love that I have never experienced in all of these kind of like previous fantasy type of relationships that were just based on dopamine and sexual validation.
Yeah, God, there's so many things within this that I think I will have to do probably a follow up. But
for sure,
what you're saying there, just if I'm going off my own experience and what I've seen through so many people, that chasing that dopamine. I know for myself, I was never able to, find the right person or sustain a long-term relationship because I was chasing the dopamine. So I'd be chasing, and I was in the entertainment industry chasing models, actresses, and I was literally addicted to, these women that, were on a pedestal and the high of trying to get them. And then I'd have the feeling that I want the next one and I want that one and that one looks amazing.
Never enough.
And that's the thing. It's like a drug, but it's so crazy how the brain, even when you're aware of it, you sort of trick yourself and think, no, that it's because of this, and I still need that, and then I'd be in these. It just never works. But and I've seen it in so many people of my friends' relationships where you'll be on this high. It's like ecstasy, where they're with this person who's more that fantasy, and it's more the lust sort of feeling, but then. And at some point it wears off. So
100%.
I think, so do we mistake that for what it means to find the right person? Because I know with my partner, we have
absolutely no clue what love is, and we mistake. It's called cognitive mislabeling, where we mistake these high sensations of validation that we get, the dopamine of like, wow, I got this amazing hot girl, or for the ladies, like I have this guy who's super duper successful and rich. And so what it does is that it's a kind of immature type of version of relating, where it is not based on love, but based on validation. What can you give to me? Right. And this is how I did relationships for the first, half of my life. Most of us do, because we go into relationships unknowingly trying to complete our unfinished business from childhood. So the reason why I'm addicted to that dopamine, that validation, is because there are parts of me that feel completely unworthy of love, that feel so not good enough, that we feel that by chasing that fulfillment comes from outside of us. So then we go and we get that thing, and just like dopamine, all of a sudden when we get that high and the anticipation and the chase wears off, now the responsibility begins. And the responsibility within a relational dynamic, Nick, if you're a masculine and you're with a woman, is there are insecurities there. There are anxieties there. She's probably been hurt by a man and she has a fear of abandonment. And so when you pull away, it activates those wounds. And then because she doesn't know how to regulate her emotions, she will become critical and she will become controlling and she will become complaining of her needs not getting met, which then automatically feeds into this wound from childhood where your mother was overbearing and your mother was critical. And now you are showing up feeling like a failure and you're not enough in this relationship. And you're like, wait, hold on a second. this relationship's supposed to make me feel good. I feel like a failure right now. It must not be working, but oh, look over there. There's a hot one that's giving me some attention. Let me go after that one right there. And the cycle begins again. And the person that you love bombed and you pedestalized, you then all of a sudden, after 6 months to about a year, the wounds get activated, your attachment wounds get activated, and now it goes from love bombing to now you're devaluing them and saying, no, you were not what I thought you were going to be. You did not meet these expectations. And then the discard happens. And then this cycle of love bombing, devaluing, discarding. And you realize that most of your relationships are these, what are called codependency trauma bonds, where it's highly volatile and polarized and magnetic in the beginning and just catastrophic once the fantasy gets broken. And so I really was interested in studying that, because I was just like yourself, living in those patterns until I realized that I had unhealed attachment trauma. And it was in my body. It's not something that you can cognitively think your way out of. But then once you heal that, you're able to show up as a more secure individual. And you realize that love isn't a feeling that you're trying to chase. Love is actually making the effort to understand your partner. That is love. Even when they're behaving in ways that are not inspiring, making the effort to understand your behavior, and making the effort to understand them. And that is a new definition of love, which is more mature and more sustainable in the long term.
It's so interesting, yeah, because that's what, with the, the relationship I'm in, I remember at the beginning, I was so, she's beautiful, she's smart, I was excited. And then there was no games. And she'd done so much work on herself that it wasn't this high. I was like, hey, this is too easy. And I kept saying to her,
weird. I'm not chasing.
And I was like, this feels too secure. This feels too easy. And I was like, this is kind of nice. But then I was just like used to feeling that dopamine high. And so I was, trying to sabotage it. I almost did sabotage it. We had to work through so many things. She was confused. And it was just, looking back, it's because I was mistaking it for that, where exactly like you're saying, I didn't realize a healthy relationship, and what you're really wanting is that security, to be caring for someone, to be and looking at the relationship as a third entity. You got the two individuals, and then together, let's also nurture this relationship. Let's look at that as its own entity. And normally you don't do that, because exactly like you're saying, you're too caught up in, oh, but I need this, I need that, I need this feeling. Yeah.
It's about maturing. It's about growing up and becoming an adult, bringing your adult self online. And what you're describing is when you're used to insecure dynamics of chasing, when the anxiety of the chase has become kind of like your foundation of like what relationships are, that love is anxiety. When you do the healing work and you actually get to a place of security within yourself, you start dating, and relationships feel totally different. Like, I just got a DM from one of my clients, and she's like, this is so strange. I am doing my own thing. I'm not chasing. And he's showing up totally secure. He follows his word. He doesn't keep me guessing. And right now I feel like, do I really care about him? Because it's so weird to not be chasing. And so we have our wiring that love means the butterfly chase of anxious attachment. So when it's not there, we wonder, is this really love? And so what I like to tell people is, love is not, instead of looking for fireworks, the goal is to think warm cup of oatmeal. And that's what safe and secure love is. And the intensity and the high of our teenage selves that are looking for the validation, when you sleep with a woman for the first time, and it's just like this ultimate validation and sense of belonging and dopamine that happens as you rewire your nervous system to become less dopaminergic and more serotonergic. You find magic in the mundane. You don't need to chase and seek the intensity like a teenager anymore. You grow up and you become an adult. You come into your divine masculine, and who's able to hold an empire, to lead a community, because you can't lead a community when you're chasing after dopamine. You look at all of the people in the world who have had massive falls from grace. Leaders, P. Diddy, uh, R. Kelly, like people who've been pedestalized as like leaders and top of their game, and then suffered like massive fall. Guaranteed, it is an addiction to the dopamine, a lack of capacity in the nervous system to expand your capacity to be in the stillness, to be able to see the magic in the mundane, which, people take magic mushrooms, right? You take magic mushrooms and you sit in a forest and you're like looking around at the trees and you're going, oh, wow, everything is magical. And the truth is that it really is. When you learn how to still your mind, rewire your nervous system, and find the magic in the boredom, that's when you've won the game of secure attachment, when you've won the game of entrepreneurship, when you've won the game of life, when you aren't basing your identity and having to chase something outside of you. And this is what becoming trigger proof really is all about.
It's so true, mate. And like, again, I'm using just my own relationship just because it's so relevant, all this stuff you're saying, to what I went through. When I was so addicted to dopamine, and I, ended up I found out I had ADHD, and, got medicated for it. And the things I've had to work through in the relationship have directly translated to my business. Because, I started so many different companies, and I'd get bored and, chase the high, and the same crap got taken into every part of life. So it really has dramatically changed every part. But you can't really, until you, like you're saying, until you confront this stuff, it's going to have that toxic effect on every single facet of your life.
I believe that's a hero's journey we all have to do. Yeah.
So what about you? We before we started recording, we're talking about people pleasing. I'm interested in that because that's been my number one issue. I'm a validation junkie, recovering validation junkie, and people pleasing's been the hardest one for me. It's so difficult. Yeah. How much does that play a role in the dynamic of relationships? How do we sort of heal? How do we deal with people pleasing? How do we try to manage, learn to manage that?
The first thing we do is to recognize that the people pleasing is actually a trauma response. So we've all heard of fight and flight, right? Fight and flight in the nervous system. Some people less have heard of the freeze response, where your nervous system goes kind of into a shutdown. But a version of the freeze response, is called the fawn response. And the fawn response is a reflexive, performative form of self-betrayal, so that we can maintain the attachment and approval of somebody outside of us. And it starts in childhood, when we are conditioned to, when we're raised, and I have a 4-year-old now, so I'm really key on helping him break that cycle. And we are raised with, I'm so proud of you, gold star for Nick, right? And so now Nick starts to learn that he gets pats on the back and little dopamine, little kind of like little breadcrumbs, little rewards for complying, for being seen as good, for being a helper. And slowly, so this is so insidious that you were developed into it. Slowly, you realize that your identity is based on other people viewing you a certain way, because we were not raised, most of us were not raised with parents who were themselves embodied and saw and were embodied and had individuated from their family systems. So it really, the word is called individuation, is this struggle or this task of becoming your whole authentic self outside of the cultural, religious, and family societal expectations. And as a child, when you are kind of in this face-off between expressing your authentic truth, which may have approval withdrawn, or approval is denied, or may upset family members or society, by expressing your authentic self versus, just abandoning your values, beliefs, desires, expression for the sake of connection, attachment versus authenticity.
Yeah.
Which one are you going to choose?
You're looking to make a change, to lose weight, to get toned, to gain self-confidence, all in just 24 minutes a day, then go no further. You can check out the Move Your Mind community by going to nickbracks.start.page.
You're going to choose attachment over your authentic self. So it's a developmental trauma where we abandon our sense of self and we put on these performative masks so that we could be seen by others as good. So what happens is we separate from ourselves, and this is called fawning. So fawning is a survival mechanism. Like I recognize how my son, when it's boys' night, my wife goes out with the girls, and she's having dinner with her friends. My son and I, who's 4, we hang out, and so we play these games, and then I get to play, we wrestle a little, and then I get to play the monster, and then I'll get up and I'll make this big face and I'll chase him around, and then he runs around, and then all of a sudden I see him shift. He becomes super duper scared, right? He's running away from me, and then all of a sudden I can see him get scared. What does he do? He turns around. He's running away like scared, and then turns around, is like, Dad, Daddy, Daddy, I love you, and comes towards me, and then is like super duper loving. And I'm like, ooh, that's a fawn response. That is baked into our survival mechanisms as children, that we will pretend we'll be charming, we'll be super duper complimentary and flattering, or as a woman, flirtatious, so that we can garner validation, right? And so it's highly manipulative, right? And it is a way of gaining attachment, way of belonging, right? And it is also a sexual fawning is something that have women, most women, you can ask most women, even ask your partner throughout her life, has she ever said yes to saying sex, to sex with somebody when her body said no, but she really wanted to be liked by somebody? That's a form of fawning. Fawning is a performative self-abandonment that people pleasing, that creates that is designed to create connection. But in that moment, that self-abandonment is a betrayal of the self, which then creates a resentment. So the resentment, the people pleaser, you're people pleasing and saying yes when you mean no, and you're not expressing your truth. You're not actually setting boundaries. You're not, putting energetic walls around your energy and saying yes to things. And this is why I got into this work, is slowly what happens is your body starts to form signs and symptoms to create those boundaries for you. This is the tie-in between our trauma responses and our health, because you talk to anyone with a chronic illness, you talk to anyone with chronic digestive issues, thyroid issues, you talk to anybody with endometriosis or anything that we're dealing with, these chronic health issues, and they're trying so hard in the medical system to try to come up with answers, getting medicine for all these diagnoses and labels. And you're looking at somebody who is a chronic fawner. So the body then isn't betraying you. It's actually working for you, so that finally your body says no, so that you can finally allow yourself to receive. Because this people pleasing thing is like, oh, I just like to do things for other people. Oh, this is the battle cry of the people. I just do things for others. I people please so much that I don't know who I am anymore. And the shadow part of this that people really don't know is that it's manipulation. And what you're doing is you're not an altruist. You're actually, it's very highly narcissistic of you, because what you're actually doing is you're trying to control and manage other people's perceptions of you, because you have zero capacity for other people's disapproval and displeasure. And your question was, how does this impact relationships? Well, over a period of time of people pleasing, you start to build resentment. And the resentment you take out on the other person for not meeting your needs. But truthfully, what I uncover when I work with people is that they're not angry with other people. They're actually angry at themselves for not speaking up. And this is where the work begins to become trigger proof and understand these unconscious dynamics at play, where we have to go back and find those younger parts that have been looking for love outside of them and learn how to fill the cracks in the floorboard, so that then you can say no and be willing to be seen as the bad guy in another person's perspective. How do we resolve this people pleasing and this trauma response of fawning? Is by expanding our capacity to be seen as the bad guy in somebody else's eyes.
So we need to practice doing that and just
It's a practice.
So I guess, yeah, is that like, because I found with any of this stuff, really, it's just sort of throwing yourself in and doing it, having that real world experience, because
you can't learn it from a book, Nick. Yeah,
no,
you can't learn it by reading a book. Yeah. You can't do it by talking to a therapist. You must actually practice. It's good to have a guide. This is what I help people in my cycle breakers, is like we guide people into this reflexive. You can't even think, Nick, you can't even consciously be aware of it. You have to interrupt the pattern because you don't even know you're doing it.
Yeah.
Most people, it's like a personality. It's an identity. I just thought I had manners. I just thought I was being nice, right? But this will destroy intimate relationships because you can't hide those parts of you that want to receive.
And destroy your life. Like you just can't be happy with if you're doing that. It's just...
No. Your business will tank. You cannot have a strong business. It's really about becoming elegantly boundaried. The title of my first book is called Becoming Trigger Proof. The next one's going to be about becoming elegantly boundaried, which means I can share my boundaries and I can understand that you might not like them, and I'm okay with you not being okay with that. I'm refused to abandon myself to maintain an attachment with you. And if you expect me to abandon myself to maintain an attachment with you, that's my red flag that you are not somebody that I should be in a relationship with. So you become really well discerning as to who you let in your life and who you're ready to let go of. Should I stay or go?
Are you interested in joining a community of like-minded people who are on the same journey as you are? Even though you're the one that needs to do the work, you don't have to go it alone. You can find all of the information at nickbracks.start.page.
Stay or go answers itself when you master this methodology.
Exactly. That was a huge sort of learning curve for me when I got to that point of, okay, let's face the fear and put up some boundaries. And if I do get this, really severe reaction to it, whether it's a relationship or a business partner or whatever the hell it is, then
I'm okay with it.
And that's just giving you the information that, well, you got to stay away from this person. They're not healthy to be around. It's
you do not have to abandon yourself for connection.
But it's so hard because like the fear of it is it feels like life and death. It's crazy.
Yes.
Like it really does. It's like survival, and you feel like you're not going to be able to cope. You're not going to make it if you put up these boundaries. It's just,
that's right.
Amazing.
Because of our unresolved abandonment wounds from our childhood. And so boundary work is trauma work. Trauma work is boundary work. And as you heal those ruptures within yourself, the attachment that you've abandoned, the parts of you that you abandoned for the sake of connection, the second half of life, if we don't go back and repair with those parts of us that we abandoned just to be seen as a good guy or to be loved, you will spend the rest of your life suffering, looking for love outside of you, feeling anxious, feeling frustrated, feeling like relationships are this just puzzle that you can't get. And it's all a reflection of the relationship with yourself.
Yeah. So you would really, you would be looking back on your life just with regret, and, it's a misery. It's sad. And you know what? Yeah, I thought about that so many times in my own life because I did so much of this stuff and still have those tendencies. And it terrified, I'm 38 now, and I was thinking about it. I was like, wow, if I don't change this stuff, I can see so clearly. You get to 40, get to 50, get to 60, your whole life's passed, and you you won't. It scares the hell out of me because I can see how easily it can happen.
Well, and your health starts to turn to shit because one of the telltale signs is, you in your 40s, the result of this holding on to this resentment. Every time you say yes to somebody when your body says no, you're in a freeze response, you're abandoning yourself, and that constriction creates inflammation. So you're 38 now, but once you hit 48, that becomes thyroid issues, that becomes stomach issues, because the constriction is happening in your gut, right? And your body is tense, and you're not sleeping very well, and you're needing medication, and then you're not able to sit and focus. And then great news, you can slap you with a diagnosis and give you a pill and then chemically change it, but the problem is still in your body. And
Yeah.
so I'm really big in helping people. I wrote a rap song called Pills Don't Teach Skills.
Yeah.
And it's about learning how to operate this nervous system, learning the language of the somatics, learning how to stop abandoning yourself every time you get triggered.
Yeah. No, I love everything. It's so interesting what you're talking about. Another thing is with relationships, how in the modern day is it difficult for men to understand how to have a healthy relationship and how to, step into that masculine energy and, a lot of
Yeah.
things that, and again, I'm just keep coming back to myself because I, was running away from that and hated the
Yeah.
responsibility, thought it would be too overwhelming, etc. When in reverse, it's been the best thing I could have imagined happening now. And I love that feeling. And that's made me step up and become a better person. But
Yeah.
without that responsibility, you won't do it. And I think we have a problem in society where men we're not taught how to do that.
No, we're not taught. And our fathers didn't teach us because they were so detached from their emotions. Their traumas weren't resolved and they hadn't healed with their unresolved parts. And anything that you don't heal, you will pass on to your kids, right? Your unhealed wounding gets passed on to the kids. And so do men automatically step up and do that? Well, that's like saying, do men automatically become really good at playing the piano? Only when they decide that they want to learn. Do men become really good at skiing, skills like skiing and golfing? Well, they become better at, like when you first start golfing, are you good at golfing? No, hell no. You suck at golf when you first begin. But it becomes a skill that the man says, I really want to get better. They might take some lessons. They might keep practicing, right? If men took the same effort in improving their golf game, right, as we do improving our business, to learning how to rewire our own conditioned self-abandonment and learn how to expand our capacity to feel the discomfort and the shame of a woman telling us their feelings, that they don't feel like their needs are getting met. If we took that same amount of effort and put it into that, families would heal. Trauma, intergenerational trauma would heal. And you're not entitled to knowing how to be I'm not entitled to being a good golfer. It's a skill that I suck at and I'm getting better. I put a little putting green in my backyard because I want to get better. And it's a practice. Becoming good at love is a skill, right? Love and self-worth also is earned, is a skill, right? It's not something that we are automatically taught unless we had unicorn parents. Now, I'm doing my darndest to teach all of this to my 4-year-old, and he's doing amazing. I asked him the other day, I said, Dominic, why do I challenge you? And he looks at me, he goes, because you want me to get good at difficult things.
Wow.
And I'm like,
for a 4-year-old,
bro.
It's not bad.
4-year-old. And I give him a fist bump and I'm like, damn straight. So because I was blessed by having a really toxic trauma bond wake me up, where things got super duper abusive in my previous relationship, where I had to go, all right, what am I missing? Because I'm really good at business and the work that I do, and the stuff that I suck at, I delegate to people who are better at it than me. But in relationships, we cannot delegate our weaknesses. We must learn how to become better at it. And so relationships were I thought it was all about success and, looking good and all that. And I realized that without learning how to become better, highly skilled at attachment, relational dynamics, to create love that feels safe and secure, to create an environment where my son can grow up where his home feels like a sanctuary, not a battlefield. No money in the world is more important than creating that as a foundation first. And when you get that first, boom, success naturally kind of blossoms out of that strong foundation. That was the foundation that I was missing. And I had success without the foundation. And I crashed and burned like most entrepreneurs do without learning that fundamental skill of becoming trigger proof. So that's why I love teaching it. It's meaningful for me.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so important. And is it harder than ever in the modern day to practice a lot of this because, we've got social media, the dating world, you go in on a dating app, and you see this all the time where people will meet up. Oh, they might meet someone. That was amazing. A person seems really interesting. But you know what? I could just jump on the app and maybe there's someone better. Maybe there's someone. So no matter what, even if you found something that seems really interesting, seems like it could be great to explore.
Yeah.
There's something, mate, you're thinking there might be something better around the corner.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is this dopaminergic kind of society that we're in, and the social media and the scrolling, and there might be something better is like what you're talking about is anticipatory. It's like anticipation, dopamine. And so is it hard? Yes. If you're listening to this, you're hearing this, you're watching this, chances are you are addicted to dopamine. And that addiction to dopamine isn't a diagnosis. Don't let people try to diagnose you, because that's just an excuse to sell you drugs, right? I mean, I can take a drug and then calm my system down artificially. Of course that works, but we're not getting to the root, which is developing the skill of shifting my orienting towards the chase, towards inward, towards finding that sense of fulfillment without the chase. And once you do that, when you get that right and you have overridden this addiction to dopamine, now you are paving the path to true fulfillment, relational connection, true intimacy, and success that is grounded and stable and not on a shaky ground. And that is what, I had to learn. And it's not easy, you're right. Now it's harder than ever. So it's going to take an active kind of process. It's going to take the same way that you would your physical fitness, right? The same amount of effort and attention of, having a garden that you're really maintaining. Your nervous system has to be the exact same level of tending that you would a garden or a really nice car that you love, or your finances or your physical activity. The nervous system, we have all of these vision boards of what we want to achieve, the next thing, but very seldom do we put a really healthy, balanced, stable nervous system as on our vision board. But without that, none of all the other shit is meaningful.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram at nickbracks. I really appreciate your ongoing support. Yeah. So for anyone listening, what would be, if someone is feeling sort of stuck or this is resonating, what would be just a first step they could take? And also, if they want to learn more about you and your work, where can we send them?
That's a great question. So where I began, where I was really stuck and I was frustrated, and this isn't to diagnose or label, it's just to get a kind of like a test, like a baseline. So if it's like in my case, I'm 49, I'm turning 50 in November at the recording of this. It's like, what do I do? Well, I get a test to test, my blood test for testosterone levels, cortisol levels, insulin receptivity. So I'm getting a baseline. And so I created this baseline. It's called a attachment style quiz. And it's a 10-minute questionnaire that helps you identify your relational profile. Am I the anxious type in my relationships? Am I the avoidant, right? And so you're able to discern our baseline starting point. And then what you do is you start to learn how to get out of the mind into the thinking and learn how to feel. And this is where somatics and shadow work come in, finding a guide and a community that can guide you back home to find these parts of yourself that you abandoned. And learning how to become trigger proof is really about expanding the space between stimulus and response and understanding when I get triggered, where do I go? I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm a failure. These are the meanings we make out of the triggers, which is our conditioned self-abandonment. So learning how to make the unconscious conscious, right? Because how do you change things? You think you have control, but you're running on autopilot. So learning how to go from reactive mind to authentic self is everybody's task. Like you cannot avoid this responsibility. It's like your physical fitness. Like it will catch up to me if I don't take care of what I put into my body and how I move my body. It will catch up to me. Similarly, my unresolved attachment wounds, the way that I react when I'm criticized or confronted, the meanings that I make out of these triggers, I'm not enough, I'm broken, I'm a failure, never good enough. This is all self-abandonment. And our work, Nick, is to become very proficient and highly skilled to be able to find those parts of ourselves and then repair with ourselves so that we can bring our adult self back online and then talk to others like an adult instead of the wounded child or the adolescent that's seeking intensity or the wounded child that's super duper needy. And so when you do that, you become a secure person. You become magnetic. Business comes to you. You're not operating from neediness. You're not operating from attachment to outcome. You're operating from your heart, and people can feel that, and that's where you become the most magnetic.
Amazing. And
so I left a little link. I left a little link for you if people wanted to get started in the show notes. Just to provide you with that little link of that attachment style quiz, and my website drnima.com is a lot more on my blog, a lot more information there that you can get to, but the quiz is the best place to begin.
Amazing. Well, we'll put all of those links in the show notes, so make sure anyone listening, go and check them out. And Nima, we finish every episode with 5 closing questions. These can be very, whatever answer comes to mind for you.
Sure, I love it.
First one is, what's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
My best childhood memory is being, I believe, 8 or 9 years old and getting the game-winning hit in the bottom of the ninth inning to win the championship. He was the best pitcher in the league, and I was this skinny little runt, but I was like the 9th batter, and 2 out, the bases were loaded, and I was just like, oh my God, full of self-doubt. I was, 9 years old, so this kid who was also 9 was like, I was a late bloomer, so he was way bigger than me. Jeff, I remember his name was Jeff Heineman. And so he did a pitch, and then I hit it, and then it went right through the center field. I rounded first base, the winning run scored. Everybody, put me up on their shoulders, talk about validation. I loved it. That's the first thing that pops into my mind. Beautiful childhood memory there. Thank you for that. Wow.
Love it, mate. Thank you for sharing. What do you think's currently the biggest burden on mental health in society?
The biggest burden on mental health is our conditioned self-abandonment. We have a culture that is looking outside of them for love. We have a culture, the biggest burden is enmeshment trauma, this lack of boundary around our energy, and the fact that we orient externally for approval rather than learning the skill of orienting internally. We're looking outside of us for fulfillment. And so that fracture from ourselves, from the traumas that are unresolved, is creating mental health diagnoses, and then everyone's going to get pills for them, not realizing that it's a skill that you can learn so that you're not dependent on a chemical for your sense of self-safety.
Yeah, great answer.
And I'm not shaming people who are on medication. I'm saying that we are grossly overusing it. It's too easy to just take that and then avoid. And so the greatest, to answer, if I can go upstream, the greatest mental health crisis is because we live in a fantasy world where we expect human beings to have no pain. So we haven't developed a capacity to be with grief, to be with insecurity, to be with our shadow parts of not enoughness. So the greatest cause, if I can go upstream, of mental health crisis is a fragmented sense of self, because we have completely disowned our shadow parts. And so by integrating them, we become a whole self, and mentally we become more stable rather than fragmented, trying to run away from parts of ourselves. And I guarantee you that that's the main root cause of the root cause of it.
It makes so much sense. Yeah, I love that. What's your personal definition of happiness?
My personal definition of happiness is it's just a fleeting feeling that most people mistake for pleasure. And in the endless pursuit of happiness, we push fulfillment further and further and further the fuck away from us. And instead of trying to be happy, I don't pursue happiness or success. And I'm going to share with you a Viktor Frankl quote that really resonated with me. Hold on one second. Let me grab it. Here it is. Don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you're going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue. And it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself. Happiness must happen, and the same holds for success. You have to let it happen by not caring about it.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
Everybody who's chasing after happiness, it's a one-way ticket to misery. I don't chase after happiness or success. I am on a mission and a purpose, and I embrace happy and sad along the path. I'm not averse to sad. I'm not averse to conflict. I'm not averse to grief, because it's a part of life. It's a part of being a parent. Every stage is sadness. Every stage is grief, where I realize, wow, he's growing up. There's less time I have with him. So the greater my capacity for sadness and grief, the more fulfilled I become. But this endless chase for happiness is fucking up our lives.
Yeah.
Same with success.
So true. If you could give one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, what would that be?
Everything that I just said, all the wisdom that I just shared in this in this episode, I would want him to really pay attention and to embody everything that I just said. One piece of advice is listen to this episode and really get a guide to help you embody everything that this crazy person just said on this podcast. Because everything I'm saying, everything that I'm sharing with you is what I'm telling my 4-year-old in order to give him the most incredible experience of life, where he walks around with an open heart and doesn't abandon himself for the sake of relationships or success and happiness.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's just fully expressed as his true authentic self, knowing who he is.
That's beautiful.
That's the goal of the work of becoming trigger proof.
Yeah. Well, final one, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the work that I went through after my last relationship, who I've become on the other side of that really dark place where I didn't really want to keep going. And I didn't think that I could move on. I didn't think that I could ever have anybody wanting to work with me after who I was showing up as in my last relationship. But who I've become as a father, as a husband, and as a leader of a community I'm incredibly proud of who I've become.
Amazing. Well, Nima, thank you so much, mate, for sharing all of this. And like I said, I'd love to have you back on because I think there's so much we can explore in this area, but it's probably one of the most important things we can all do. So yeah, keep listening to this, and anyone listening, go to the links, look up Nima's work and reach out to him.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate our time together.
Thank you, Dr. Nima Rahmany, for joining me today and offering your insights. And thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to leave a comment or just send a DM. Your feedback is always appreciated. Please don't forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much.